Now, we've got Scott Bauer, he's the CEO of Prosper Trading Academy, joining us for a look at a few. He's got his eye on, thinks we should as well. Scott, good to have you back. Let's talk United Airlines, lower today on news that Oscar Munoz announced his departure from his role as chief executive in May. He's going to be replaced by the president, Scott Kirby. What are you hearing about UAL today?
You know, from everything that I've read, and I obviously don't know these people personally here, the gentleman, Scott Kirby, that's replacing Oscar Munoz, is so incredibly highly respected within the industry, a go-getter, an innovator, and I think United needs that. You know, after some of the big gaffes that they had over the last couple of years, they from a social media presence and marketing presence, they've done a really good job, and they need to really focus and continue on that. And supposedly this new gentleman coming in is the right guy to do that. So, you know, for me, Ben, it's almost a non-event from a fundamental standpoint of trade, looking at the stock. I don't think, anybody should really take a look at this and say, okay, United's a buy, United's a sell because of that here.
Yeah, Scott Kirby, one of the most recognized airline executives in the U.S. He's with Air America West, U.S. Airways, and American Airlines as well. You mentioned the fundamentals don't necessarily move you one way or the other. Let's talk technicals, because for the most part, right in the middle of the range that we've been in after topping out around 96, and then it looks like they double bottomed or triple bottomed, I guess you could say, around 81. Scott, what are you seeing on the charts?
No, exactly the same. And you know, that 200-day moving average is actually just above that triple bottom you were talking about. So if this kind of trends down towards that area, I would definitely be interested in accumulating something there, whether it's some upside call spreads, maybe selling a put spread down there. But like you said, Ben, we're right smack dab in the middle of the range. So, you know, I'd stay away from it from right here, and I don't necessarily have an opinion, bullish or bearish. However, if it does get back down to that range, I'm in.
All right, I'm noticing that 200-day moving average. It's hanging out right around 86 point, well, right around 87, so right where we are for the most part. Scott, that gives us something to keep an eye on. Let's move on, though, because you've got a couple names that are set to report this afternoon that you've got your eye on. Quarterly results and Zoom, ticker symbol ZM, set to report today. A lot of focus on these IPO stocks this fall. ZM is no different. What are you looking for?
Yeah, and I think that's why we're seeing some added extra volatility in names both like, Zoom and Crowd from these IPO stocks that have moved quite significantly, over the last couple earnings reports here. So, about a $6 expected move here. 62 is the recent low here in Zoom, had a range up to 75 here. Again, I'm not doing anything going into this because I think there's just way too much unknown on some of these newer IPOs that are reporting. However, for the small data set that we have, that 62 area in Zoom is quite attractive.
Yeah, Scott, I'm looking at that 75 level. That's got to be a bit disappointing to investors to see it rolling over there. But as long as we're holding up above that 62 low that you just mentioned, as we came off that level in the middle of October, I'd imagine, again, right now it's just kind of sideways consolidation, but also somewhat disappointing to investors considering that this consolidation's happening, well, near multi-month lows, and as you can see, well off those highs we saw around 107. I mean, this is acceptance of price activity at these lower levels. Investors clearly are not buying this one up down here.
That's exactly what it is. It's acceptance at those levels. And when you typically see a kind of longer period of time with a lot of volume around that same area, you're set up for a move, a pretty big move one way or the other. And I think that's why the market is, pricing in around a 10-11% move here. And again, if it's to the downside, that's 62-ish or so, I may pique my interest a little bit.
All right, let's talk CrowdStrike, ticker symbol CRWD. I saw they got a price target cut from RBC yesterday ahead of earnings. Yep. They went down to 67 from 83. Baird cut their target as well. Concerns ahead of quarterly results. What are you seeing?
Lower lows, lower highs here. There is really big support in this stock around 46 or so, but I don't like the charts on this one. I know they signed some pretty big deals. They're working with Amazon. They've got some other big deals in the works here, but their expenses are going to be ratcheting up here, and I think that's going to come to roost in this earnings report.
Yeah, this is another one, Scott. When you take a look at it, coming off that high from 101 down to 44.58, right around the same time we just talked about ZM them bottoming out, and then they rallied back up to around 60, as you mentioned. But again, investors have to be a bit concerned when they look at this. But as long as we hold above those lows from earlier this fall, again, at this point, I mean, it just really price acceptance of these lower levels. But they've got to build on this. They've got to turn things around. Potentially, they've got a double bottom around the 45 level, though, that they can use to build on.
No doubt about it. I mean, it's more than likely going to test that area of support again. But like you said, we've got to see a double or triple at that area there, and then maybe I would get a little bit more positive on it. But going into earnings here, I'm not too optimistic.
All right, well, potential volatility to continue here, Scott. We certainly have seen some this year with these stocks, and we'll continue to watch here as some is expected into earnings. Scott Bauer, really appreciate you joining us here today on Midday Movers. Trader Scott's the CEO of Prosper Trading Academy. We're going to take a quick break. Coming up next, my chart of the day, Acadia Pharmaceuticals to a new year high print today. Stick around, I'll tell you why. Stay right here on the TD Ameritrade Network because Midday Movers at Liechtenstein will be right back.